I'd like to call to order the November 2nd meeting of the Hammond Board of Public Works and Safety. Roll call.
Mr. Sutton?
Here.
Ms. Gray? Mr. Margaret?
Here.
Are there any conflict of interest statements?
No.
Approval of the minutes of the October 19th and October 26th meetings.
I recommend we approve the minutes for October 19th and October 26th. meeting.
And I'll concur. Under correspondence, item A, we have a agreement with First Group Engineering for engineering services on 173rd Street, Indianapolis Boulevard, to the Indiana Harbor Railroad Crossing Project. This is an agreement that was approved by the board a couple of weeks ago, and then an error was discovered in the document, so then it's been corrected, so we need to rescind the previous agreement and approve this one.
All at once? Yeah,
I don't know, we probably could do it all at once. Yeah.
Okay, I recommend that we rescind the agreement with First Group Engineering from 2 weeks ago and recommend that we approve the updated version today.
And I'll concur. Item B, correspondence received from BP Pipeline requesting permission to perform a repair of an existing pipeline on public right-of-way at 6804 and 6830 Wicker Avenue beginning November 7th, 2017 with a completion date of November 22nd. It's in the parkway, so I don't see a problem with that.
I recommend that we approve the correspondence from BP Pipelines.
And I'll concur. Item C, correspondence received from Superior Construction requesting permission for lane restrictions on Hammond Avenue over the Grand Calumet River beginning October 30th, 2017 for bridge construction. Yeah, the work has started and the lane restrictions are in place. They were given a verbal approval by the engineering department.
I recommend we approve the request from Superior Construction.
And I'll concur. Item D, correspondence received from Superior Construction requesting permission to occupy the vacant lot owned by the city on the southwest corner of Hammond Avenue in Wilcox, which is the former state lumber yard. This is during the reconstruction of the bridge on Hammond Avenue, also offering the city any excavated materials not incorporated into the bridge project. Now, since the river was cleaned up, the area where the culverts are wasn't part of the cleanup. So I'd be suspicious that some of that material might not be suitable. So before the city would accept it, we need a complete analytical for any contamination, solvents, oils, heavy metals, or any petroleum product. So we can approve this subject to that stipulation.
I recommend we approve it subject to the testing of the materials that will be removed from the construction site.
And I'll concur. Item E, request for permit received from Comcast requesting permission to install new cable TV between an existing pole on the right-of-way of Ann Avenue and the building at 130 Rimback Street.
I recommend we approve the request from Comcast.
And I'll concur. Item F, an amended request for permit received from Comcast requesting permission to install new cable TV at a depth of 36 inches along 173rd Street and Northcott Avenue.
No issues, right? No issues. No. I recommend we approve the request from Comcast on 73rd Street work.
And I'll concur. Item G, correspondence received from First District Councilman Mark Kalwinski requesting $18,000 of gaming funds be allocated for the installation of French drains in the First District.
I recommend we approve the councilman's request. 4th District.
First District.
Huh?
The next one is
Oh,
fourth.
sorry.
Oh, they're out of order.
Hold on.
It's this one here. It
Oh,
was
I'm sorry.
stuck.
My fault. I recommend we approve the councilman's request from the 1st District.
And I'll concur. Item H, correspondence received from 4th District Councilman Bill Emerson Sr. requesting $24,000 of gaming funds be allocated for the installation of French drains in the 4th District.
Recommend we approve the councilman's request.
And I'll concur. Item I, correspondence received from 2nd District Councilman Pete Torres requesting $6,000 of gaming funds be allocated for the installation of French drains in the 2nd District.
Recommend we approve the councilman's request.
And I'll concur. Item J, disposal authorizations received from the Hammond Police Department.
Recommend we approve the chief's request.
And I'll concur. Item K, a hearing on a property located at 10 Rimback.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Attorney Del Santo for the property owner Dolores Lucas. We've had discussions with Kelly and Jaime, and we're requesting this be continued until the end of January. We think we have the matter resolved.
Yeah, so this is going to be a removal of multi-units turning back into 2 units, actually. Upon inspection earlier this year, we found multiple units, limited for the whole order. We talked to Attorney Del Santo. She does plan on selling the house, so she will be evicting the tenants currently, or terminating their lease, I should say. And we, like I said, we spoke to Attorney Del Santo, and you know, we'll set for status January 25th of 18, and we'll go from there.
Okay. Do you have a recommendation to set it for January 25th of 2018?
Recommend we approve the status update on January 25th, 2018.
And I'll concur.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Item L, hearing on property located at 6637 Harrison Avenue.
I can ask the board to please move this forward on the list. Make this copy of the file for this case. He's copying the file now,
Oh.
so we can just
Bypass
call
that.
down in the line and we should be here in a second.
Okay. Okay.
Right back.
Okay.
Slow down.
So we can move down to item M until he comes up with it.
We put it, whenever Nick shows back up, you'll have that extra file.
Okay.
Okay, item M is an agreement to rehabilitate property located at 704 Willow Court.
Right.
This is a 2 units, we convert back to a single family home. The owner understands that, and agrees to that.
Okay. So your recommendation is to approve it, right?
Approve the findings?
Yeah.
I recommend we approve the findings for 704 Willow Court.
And I'll concur. Item N, correspondence received from Miss Amy Smith, Insurance Coordinator, requesting approval for Walmart to offer flu shots to active city employees.
I recommend that we approve Ms. Smith's request for the flu shots.
And I'll concur. Item O, correspondence received from Pastor James E. Ford, World Made Flesh Ministry, 700 Sibley Street, requesting a tree next to his church property be cut as his branches are allowing small animals to get on the roof and the roots are growing into the church wall. We probably need to refer this to the Park Department and Engineering Department so that we can determine if it's actually on city property.
I recommend that we send not only to the Parks Department, but also engineering to determine if it is a city tree and what can be done with it.
Could you please send it to the code enforcement also?
And code enforcement as well.
We decide if it's on public property, city property. we
Right.
decide to pursue.
So that's your recommendation?
Yes.
And I'll concur. Item P, correspondence received from Miss Teresa Geyer, 3033 171st Street, requesting no parking on street when 2 inches of snow or more is present. That probably needs to be referred to Gary Gleason, because I don't think we have an ordinance that covers that.
No,
That's a Chicago thing, right?
and actually, years ago, we took down those signs that were across the city.
I recommend that we submit this request to Gary Gleason for review.
And I'll concur. Item Q, garage sale permit submitted for approval.
Oh, just one, okay.
The season's almost over,
Recommend we approve the one garage sale permit.
and I'll concur. Matters from other board members.
Mr. President, if we make, if we're back up for, Al, 6637 Harrison.
You're all set? Okay. Mr. Weigel?
On this matter with 6637 Harrison, in regards to the legality of number of units at the property address, I believe this matter was first brought in front of the board in 2015 during an inspection performed by myself and Inspector Saliga. We recently revisited the property October 17th of this year, still in the same condition. Our department has a stance that the first floor, rear, and second floor apartments at this location do not meet minimum code requirements to be used as separate habitable space. There were never any building permits issued or utility permits issued for the creation of these units. Based on the findings during the inspection regarding fire separation issues as well as minimum ceiling height and egress violations, we have drafted the order to have the first floor rear and second floor apartment removed from this property as it's currently constructed. Based on our findings and research, when you have this 3-unit property, certain requirements need to be met, especially for fire separation. One of the main indications, such as the main support member in the basement of the property, would have been required to be made out of non-combustible material. At this point, it's still one of those wood, old like wood rail ties supporting the entire structure. There's not adequate fire separation between the first floor front and first floor rear apartments. In the hallway, there is a section of wall there that is constructed out of combustible material. On the other side, in the rear apartment, there is a wood door, which is just locked. So that is what separates the front and rear apartments. The staircase leading up to the second floor does not meet minimum width requirement, and the ceiling height is in question in various areas of the second floor apartment. So it would be our request that the board affirm, and once again, the removal of the second floor and first floor rear apartments at this location.
Mr. Weil?
Morning. Well, needless to say, I haven't had much of a chance to read this.
Okay.
It's the same thing as 2015's order that we.
Well, you know, the purpose of the reinspection, which was made clear to everyone, was to go out there and have these gentlemen tell us specifically what needed to be done to turn this into a single-family unit. Instead, we have more of the same, you know, of violations. That wasn't the purpose of our meeting 2 weeks ago. And I don't have that. You still don't have that, because Mr. Lazarian, who purchased this property in 1994 and has made only 2 improvements on the property, both of which were based upon issued permits, one of which was for new siding and one of which was for a new roof, okay? So again, we ask for the code enforcement people to tell us specifically what they want to do, what they want to require Mr. Lazarian to do to shut down those 2 units they want to shut down, so we can weigh the expenses of doing that and weigh the expenses of contesting this matter, because we don't think you, I know there's a lot of disagreement here, but I haven't seen a case yet that says you can apply the zoning regulations and code enforcement regulations retroactively. Because when he bought this, I believe this property was in compliance with the existing ordinances at that time. So what I'm asking for simply is for what the purpose of the last meeting was tell us what do we need to do to keep it a single family? Because he's got one tenant in there who pays $400 a month. He's losing money now on this. And by the way, this has not been before the board before. The inspection was filed 3 years ago and posted. And so Mr. Lazarian says, okay, I'll get rid of those two tenants, which he did, waiting for this to be brought before the board, and it took 3 years to do that. So now we get another inspection. It says the same thing that was inspected 3 years ago. I'm kind of curious why this wasn't presented 3 years ago. So what we're asking is for a little time for the code enforcement folks to tell us what precisely they want us to do to turn this into a single family.
If I may respond, Mr. President? My suggestion would be to get a general contractor in there to give estimates on what it would take to return this to a single-family home. They will have a general idea of what needs to be done. As far as specifically saying what needs to be done, that's near impossible to do, because once you open up walls or once you start removing walls and opening this up, there's no indication of what you may find in there. Knob and tube wiring, Romex that's not installed incorrectly, plumbing that's maybe cut off or uncapped. It's just, we would be glad to talk with the general contractor if they have questions about what needs to be done. In my experience, it seems to be a pretty easy case, removing the kitchen and the second floor and capping off plumbing and water where it's not needed. But I could explain to Mr. Weigel and his client what needs to be done, and I'm going to have the same questions from a licensed contractor that may come across something that needs to be answered. So basically, removing these apartments is an easy step for a general contractor. It gets tricky when you start opening walls and come across things that need to be done. Those contractors, that's why we ask for licensed general contractors, so they know what needs to be done when this happens. And they come across the knob and tube wiring and mixed with the conventional or Romex or whatever have been done to do that. And that's the problem with these houses when they're not permitted, when they're not inspected, when they don't meet code. That's why it's so important to have licensed contractors that understand what needs to be done in these cases.
Well, then we wasted our time because it was plainly the reason for this so-called reinspection for them to go through the house and tell us precisely what we needed to do. And now we're back at square one again saying, well, sorry. It seemed like an excuse just to do a reinspection since they hadn't done one for 3 years. Would that be correct, Mr. Lazarian?
Yeah, if I may say so. So you want a licensed contractor to open the walls to tell you what your code says to do.
No, that's not what I suggested. What I suggested is you get
Somebody else
estimates.
tell you what needs to be done.
Get licensed contractors to come and give you estimates what it's going to take to turn that back into a single-family home. After a contract is signed and they start doing the work, if they come across something that they're not aware of what needs to be done, which quite honestly I don't see happening, it's one of the reasons they're licensed, they'll understand what to do. If they need any questions answered at that point, we'll be glad to answer them. My problem is when they start removing the apartments, when they get into the work and they come across knob and tube wiring mixed with conventional wiring, which is our department is one of the most dangerous things you can come across, causes many electrical fires and deaths. They'll know what to do. They'll know that there's a situation that needs to be corrected. They're not going to allow that wiring that needs to be replaced or upgraded to remain. And if I may respond as far as the inspection, the first inspection was done with Matt Saliga, who I think it's been 2 years now, has relocated to Tennessee and is doing home inspections in Tennessee now. So the file was kind of in limbo for some time. I'm sure Mr. Lazarian was aware of that time that those were marked uninhabitable and should have been occupied. That's why we have a single tenant. As long as we have one tenant in there, I'll give them as much time as they need to get estimates and sign a contract.
So the licensed inspector is to tell you what needs to be done. Not, you don't have a print, but you're supposed to approve that. And also for opening walls, if this building is in existence, and he talked about one wall being
No.
to change all the electricity, the whole building, to what the code is currently.
No, what I'm suggesting is you get a licensed general contractor in there to give you estimates on what needs to be done, explaining what needs to be done. If they need to, or if it comes across the situation where walls are opened up, we'll have to get the water and gas lines that are capped off, from where they begin, to those other units, okay? If there's other plumbing or electrical issues that they uncover while they're doing that work that is not visible to our eye as we do the inspection, they either will call us and tell us, what do you want us to do, what's your recommendation, or quite honestly, licensed general contractor should know what needs to be done to bring it up to code. So I'm not asking any wall to be opened up that doesn't need to be opened up. That's why I'm asking you to get licensed general contractors to give you estimates of what needs to be done. You can give us copies of estimates, I'll be glad to go over the estimates of what they plan on doing, and what may be different, if there's a price difference in either one of them. I'm glad to talk to the general contractors and
It sounds like the property owner is willing to convert it back to a single family. I think the only issue is that you need a third party, a licensed contractor to actually give you a plan that says, well, here's what we're gonna do and here's what it's gonna entail.
exactly what would be accompanied in the estimate.
If I may say, do you bring someone in your house, licensed contractor, to say, tell me what you want to do? Okay, there's a second bathroom on the first floor.
Mhm.
It's probably was wrong, so you're telling me to remove the bathroom, even though I make it to a single family. Do some homes, the point is, I think, which Mr. Weigel pointed out, is there has been no communication. The burden is on you if you issue a citation 3 years ago. If you have internal staff problems, that's your obligation, not mine. You
Licensed
didn't-
contractor is gonna know what the
No, I'm
what the
talking
code
about the
is,
fact
you
that
know.
3 years
like-
ago, we had this conversation.
Yeah, but I just went through building a deck over at my house, and I told the contractor, here's how big I want it, now put it in, ask for code, and he did it.
Right, I understand.
So
if I
that's
say,
the
well,
same
as a
boat you're in, you know,
making
you're
a
gonna,
single-family home, will they, will they come back again and say, well, we want this done, we want this done with it?
I'm sure
What
during-
we're asking for?
I'm sure during the permit process, they're gonna be talking back and forth with the contractor and saying, yeah, this is okay, I don't know about this, you need to change that. Which is typically what's gonna happen, so I don't see where there's a big issue here.
This is deconstruction, not construction.
Well,
They know exactly what needs to be done. If they don't, they know they can call Mr. Cook, myself, the building inspector, whatever needs to be done.
I'm reasonable here to understand, it was listed, it was sold as a 3-unit. There's 3 separate electric meters. It was put in by Nextel before I bought it, so as long as I've done any business in the city, they've always required permits or an approval from the city in order to establish an electric meter. So we're going back and changing something that was purchased back in 1994. Now, we just like a little guidance. If you're taking a home that I purchased for $70,000 and they're asking you to put $50,000 into it, it's still worth $70,000. Does that seem like a reasonable thing for anybody to? We just asked for some communication.
Absolutely.
We got no communication.
I think you don't know that until the contractor looks at it and tells you, here's what it's gonna cost you to do this.
Understood. And as Mr. Weigel said, these papers were delivered 2 minutes ago. This conversation was 2 minutes ago. We would have hoped this conversation was a month ago or 3 years ago.
The board understands that we bring these situations in front of the Board of Public Works and Safety because it's a board of record. If you sign it, that it needs to come back to a single-family home, that's what we're gonna have done. Communication, I've never gotten a phone call from anyone saying, what do I need to do? If there was an inspection 3 years ago, I'm sure there was, then the follow-up doesn't make the situation any safer. I wish I could make my decisions, no, I don't wish I could make my decisions on monetary issues. I'm sorry it's gonna affect this gentleman, or it has affected this gentleman monetarily. I'm just glad there hasn't been a fire or death in that house.
Oh,
And that's what we are in charge of, safety. This is why we're in the Board of Public Works and Safety.
excuse me, this is very misleading. The reason we went out there 2 weeks ago with 2 inspectors, Mr. Novak and Nick Farrell, was for the specific purpose of the request that I made at the last meeting, tell us what we need to do. And now what we get is a re-up on re-up on the initial complaint. So Mr. Lazarian has to make a decision on whether he can afford to spend the money, or whether it's economically feasible to say, okay, we'll bring on the contractors and let us know how much it is, and decide whether he wants to give up. But I don't think legally you can take the building codes that were recently enacted and apply them to a building that was built in 1912 and met code for all these years and suddenly say, sorry, no longer house. And so I guess what we do is like to get the numbers from the contractors and then tell you whether we either want to contest this or not.
Logically, that seems like the next step. Get the numbers from the contractor and then get back to the building department and then make a decision. Either it's feasible or it's not. Personally, I think it's probably feasible, and I don't think it's gonna cost that much.
Well,
Because you're not
that's
gonna
if he
make 'em-
decides not to contest it,
What?
okay?
I didn't catch what you said.
That's if Mr. Lazari, if he gets a number and he says, I can't afford to do this, then he's gonna contest this.
But if it's nominal, I mean, or
Right.
it's
Yeah, that's his right.
reasonable, as you
That's
said,
his right.
I understand.
Right.
Well, all I'm saying, we were misled by going out there 2 weeks ago, and it cost him attorney fees and his time for nothing.
Quite honestly, Mr. President, Board, I could have had this conversation with Mr. Lazarian without Mr. Weigel here. I'm not saying you have to do it now. And as long as there's only one tenant in that property, he can take as much time as he needs. I don't have to worry about two different entities in this house doing things differently that may cause a fire or an unsafe situation. If you want, it just said, get the numbers, get the estimates. If there's
Yeah, that-
contractors have no questions, I'll be glad to answer them. Mr. Cook, Bob Bell, anyone will be glad to answer those questions. Get the
Would
estimates.
it be a common practice for you to be out there when the general contractor is there and answer any questions that they have at that time, right then and there, so it
I would have
doesn't
no
string
problem,
out any
I would have no
farther than
problem
that?
doing that. Typically, when they're gonna come out and give an estimate, they understand what the situation is, they understand what they need to do. Okay, so the questions come when they get into the actual removal or actual doing the work. Something shows up that they didn't catch, or we were unable to see. But if, I have Board of Cooperative with anyone that wants to have questions answered on the scene. If the contractor calls me and says, I'm going out and getting an estimate, what do you need to do? I'd be glad to be there.
Well, I guess, I don't know how you want to handle this, but,
I think you
Sounds
should get a
like
contractor and let them get the numbers, and if the numbers don't work, you know, you could always come back to the board.
okay. You're not going to set a time limit on this, okay?
I would like a status date of whatever they may choose, but I don't want to just.
We should probably set a tentative date,
Right.
so this doesn't slip through the cracks. And then you'll be telling me in a year that, hey, you guys never
No,
called us
that's
back.
not gonna- that's not going to happen.
What do you think you need?
Because
60 days? You need more than that?
You wanna go into 18?
It's, I would, let's
Wanna
go
go into
into
18?
18, 2 months from now will be Christmas, New Year's,
Right.
Yeah.
weather, everything else. Hey, whatever, sometime mid-January would be fine.
it's okay. Right, Sean?
I don't have a problem at all. I'm not, we've talked, I'm not hard to get hold of. I return all my calls. Email's the easiest way, but you wanna call me, whatever, that's not a problem. Whoever contractors you get, make sure they're licensed contractors, you get a list of contractors downstairs at the, building department, inspections department, and, get you your estimates and we'll go from there.
I think it would be beneficial if someone, if it's not you, from your, that is there to answer any questions a contractor might have, so walking away, everybody knows exactly what's to be expected.
I'm
You
trying
want to
to
set a status date of February 8th?
That'd be fine.
That'll give them plenty of time to talk to a couple contractors, see what you want to do.
Talk to you, good business.
Yeah.
Every contractor.
And if it doesn't work, you know, you can always come back to the board and I think it's gonna be less than you think it is, to be honest with you. It's a lot more expensive to go the opposite direction.
Yeah, exactly. Deconstruction is out.
He knows that.
And construction.
Okay, I recommend that we hold this over for status to February 8, 2018.
And I'll concur.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. Matters from other board members?
No.
I've got two. First, I got the bid tabulation on the Lindbergh Avenue lighting project from 173rd to 169th. There were two bidders. The low bidder was Midwestern Electric, and I got a recommendation from United Consulting that it should be awarded to Midwestern based on them being the lowest bidder. Do I have a?
I recommend that we agree with the bid recommendation.
And I'll
from Midwest.
concur. Next, we have a letter from the Assistant Police Chief, and it's a disciplinary action.
I recommend that we approve or accept the disciplinary action from the police chief.
And I'll concur. Are there any other matters from other board members?
No.
Matters from other department heads or their representatives? New business, old business. Under old business, we have a request received from the Downtown Hammond Council requesting permission to place signs throughout the city.
I recommend that we approve the recommendation for the sign approval.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll concur. Item 10, meetings open to the public. Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to step up to the microphone? No? State your name so we know who we're talking to.
I'm Andrea Galvez, and I'm from the house in 505 Highland Street, and I want to ask for an extension for my rehabilitation.
House on the corner?
Yeah, they signed a rehab agreement and they were, in the process of building. I would recommend having Kurt approve it, to give an extension.
So you still have the paperwork?
They should have the paperwork downstairs, yes.
So we really can't take any action until you present the paperwork to the board.
Okay, this is new to me, I didn't know she was gonna show up.
Okay.
So are we beyond the, are we beyond that point now?
Did it expire?
Yeah,
Did it expire, when was the date?
I think it was October 16th.
So we'll just go downstairs and see if Kurt can approve that.
Okay.
Extension's there.
So you're gonna talk to her after the meeting? Okay. Anyone else in the audience? If not, do I have a recommendation to adjourn the meeting?
Recommend we adjourn the meeting.
And I'll concur. Meeting's adjourned.